Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Chris.
Hey, bub.
We've got Vince.
I'm too old for this snicked.
And I'm Kia. Hello. Welcome to the show. Today we're talking about Wolverine. Chris, I'm pretty sure you used that introduction last time we did a Wolverine comic, didn't you? Have we ever
bub.
done? Yeah, bub.
Gene!
Gene. We're specifically talking today about a miniseries that has kind of become one of those modern classics. People love to talk about him. Old Man Logan. And the reason specifically we decided to do that this week is because we kind of thought that the new Logan movie was going to play off of Old Man Logan a little bit and kind of adapt that into its story a little.
It's called Logan, and he's an old man in it.
It's true, but it turns out they're just doing the story of the new Wolverine with the little girl clone. So I'm actually more excited for that movie because
Yes.
Because I just read Old Man Logan, and I don't want to see that movie.
So you're hating on it, but already it's just such a fucking fun premise, and it's enjoyable. And yes, it's Mark Millar, Steve McNiven. So I didn't go into this with just like, oh, this is going to be high concept art or anything like that. I knew it was going to be a dumb hack and slash kind of thing, but I was pleasantly surprised with how fun I thought a lot of the details were.
No, Mark Millar's got a great premise. Like, he's really good at selling premises. Like, he's a writer. We've covered him for Civil War, but he did The Kingsman. He did Kick-Ass. Those are his two biggest things. He's really good at a pitch, which in this pitch is, what if it's 50 years after all the superheroes died, Wolverine's still alive, and he's just kind of lived a quiet life, and it's kind of like Unforgiven, where he's brought in for one last mission. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Sounds great to me.
Great. Yeah. I kind of wish he would have let someone else just write that, or just write the first issue, because he's great at hooking me and getting me in, and I'm like, all right, let's see where this goes. I've got a lot of problems with it, but overall,
execution is not.
Yeah. And I'm sure Chris will help us point out a lot of the errors that I missed. Chris, am I right? Do you have errors for us that you will find?
Yes, this book is not perfect, it turns out.
All right, but yeah. So let's go into the story a little bit. Just like you were saying, it's his one last mission. Not really, that whole thing, but he owes a bunch of rent to the evil Hulk gang that now runs his part of town. Basically, the supervillains took over. They won, and Logan, for whatever reason, is like, I'm out of the game. No more killing. No more any of that. But Hawkeye pulls him back in, and they go on a road trip to go save his daughter. And Wolverine is like, I don't want to do any superhero business. Call me Logan, not Wolverine. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever. But over the course of this thing, people die. They keep running into all these crazy new characters that we're gonna have in the future, and eventually he comes back home to find that the Hulk gang killed his family anyways because they're a bunch of assholes, and so Wolverine kills them. And that took pretty much
8.5 issues to tell this story.
It took way too long, but the first half of it, I definitely enjoyed more than the back half, because it's all sort of these one and done ish adventures, where, like I said, every time he goes somewhere, we meet some people, and I don't know. I'm just a sucker for any kind of alternate reality. I love seeing how people are changed and whose descendants are doing what, and like the Venom symbiote that had attached itself to a dinosaur. That was great. We only got it for
I don't know. I don't know about that Venom T-Rex. I think Mark Millar has a really good way of making my inner 7-year-old being like, there's a T-Rex with the Venom symbiote, and I'm like, hell exactly. Yeah. And then I'm like, and you executed it so poorly.
Right. Nothing happens with it. It just shows up, and then they outrun it in the spider buggy, which is, again, just a detail that's thrown in for absolutely no reason, but it's just there, and you're like, okay, they've got the spider buggy. Spider-Man's
Spider-Mobile, please.
Oh, is that what it's called? I thought it was the buggy.
It's called the Spider-Mobile in the 70s when it's invented. I assume they are just copying that name.
I think he... what was he saying? That Johnny Storm souped it up a little bit and changed it up? Yeah.
So, do we want to go into more detail about this book, or?
I mean, do you want to? How much? Because it is 8 issues. And
I don't like a lot of it, but I think that there are so the first issue I think is relatively decent. I think that there's like some minor details that like really irk me. That it's like it's just him in the West, and he's being basically like roughed up for money by his landlords who are evil. So he's got to go get some money. And I'm like, this is a nice like establishing of a premise, establishing of a world issue. The detail that the Hulk hillbillies are the product of Bruce Banner and him sleeping with She-Hulk, his cousin, to make the hillbillies. I'm like, this is an unnecessary detail.
Yeah, that's a very unnecessary detail.
They could have just had hillbillies that had gotten the Hulk serum, and I would have been fine. Or 50 years later, like, Bruce Banner's kids are just shitheads, and Bruce Banner's dead, and who cares about Bruce Banner? Like, it doesn't make sense to me that they have to be Bruce Banner's kids from him sleeping with his cousin, and it just seems like a weird, mean detail that doesn't make sense to me. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying. And I agree with you. I think a lot of it's Mark Millar, so it's a lot of sexist type of stuff where, I don't know, people just, in general, he seems very obsessed with sex. So, yeah.
And this was a simpler time, back when Obama was president.
No, he wasn't. It started. It's like I think it ran from June 2008 to September 2009. So the first half of it is the end of the Bush era.
Oh.
It took a long time. It took such a long time that it was in the main Wolverine issues, like 66 to 72.
Which also bothers me. Like, for such a clearly alternate universe story, why didn't you just make this a miniseries instead of?
It's in the whatever volume of Wolverine it is, issue 66 to 72, and then they're like, bro, you're taking too long. Daniel Way's got to start his run. You got to finish this up in a special. Ugh. I know, right?
What a 1-2 punch.
And I think this.
But I mean, with that creative team, you knew it was going to take forever.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, yeah.
And it's got some minor tie-ins to Miller and Hitch's Fantastic Four run, which also similarly kind of fell apart, where they go to like a dystopian future and it's the same dystopian future. So,
really? I didn't even catch that, and I read that.
Yeah, I didn't catch that either. I think it came out like a year before. But
yeah, and like that, those books were like 5-second reads, so
yeah,
it's hard. It's hard for those Fantastic Four books to stay with you for a year.
Right. These similarly were 5-second reads. So the second issue...
Yeah, especially the further and further we go in the series, there's less and less dialogue and just more and more art. So they just go faster and faster.
This is a book that of this era, only had like 3 scenes per issue, which kind of bothered me a lot.
But that first issue is a lot denser, though. He does set a lot of groundwork.
Is it? Because it is still like an issue 0. Because all that literally happens is he agrees to go with Hawkeye on the Thing. Like, that's all.
Sure.
I think it establishes premise also.
Yeah, they do a lot of world building.
But that's why it's an issue 0, because it's all set up.
It's nothing I couldn't have read in Newsarama, which is what I did.
That's fair.
I knew everything that was going to happen.
The details. Like, I love that the map of the U.S. When they're traveling that shows us. I love maps, man. I'm a fantasy nerd. I love that kind of stuff.
You like Jonathan Hickman's maps. Jonathan Hickman makes some good maps.
I love maps, man. I just want every comic book from now on to include a map, period. I don't care. Just put it in something.
I know this is a really, piddly complaint in this book that is not good, but this map is really lazy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's totally lazy.
Like, it doesn't even make sense. There's a whole, like, third of the country, Texas, all the way north to like Montana, that's just nothing, not labeled at all.
It's a wasteland.
Well, because like, did Magneto take over Vegas? Was that what the map had on it?
But then he lost it to the Kingpin.
Yeah,
there's a lot. Again, I don't care. I'm glad all this sort of weird history exists. I don't need him to flesh it out because I'd probably hate it if he fleshed it out.
He fleshes it out more than I would like.
Okay, fair. But I also love... here's another reason I love this. I guess I read the current Old Man Logan before reading this Old Man Logan, where Jeff Lemire kind of took that premise and has just been having fun with this kind of mentally screwed up Logan living in our world now.
Okay.
Or living in sort of like the current Marvel universe, not our world.
But the Marvel universe is your universe.
Oh my god, it's my universe.
But
I really like what he's doing with the premise there. So again, I love this book for sort of opportunity, I guess. Yeah, this book had such great promise.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm fine with issue 1. I also, when I first read this, I was like, I read the first issue and I'm like, call me when this is done because this is not going to get anything accomplished issue to issue. So,
no way.
So I just waited till the collected edition to read it all. I do remember that. Issue 2 is Hawkeye. It's very Hawkeye heavy, and it's Old Man Hawkeye heavy with like he's got a ponytail and he's blind and he's like too cool for school, and I'm just like, this is too much Hawkeye. This isn't Hawkeye 1. And it's too much of this character.
Millar. Yeah, it's too much.
And it's too much of this character, and I'm like, throughout this book, I don't think Logan actually says much or does much.
He doesn't really shine. Really, we feel for him because he's like the oldest one, and he's. We find a reason to give a shit a little more later, but it doesn't feel like it had to be Wolverine. You know what I mean? It could have been like any character.
Yeah, and then classic sexist style. I think Hawkeye hooked up with like a really young woman.
Yes, Peter Parker's daughter, so Spider-Girl.
Which is very strange. And then they had a daughter together?
Yes.
Okay. And that Spider daughter is now trapped and needs help?
But and so the final page is like her, like this whole thing is like drawn like kind of like desert, kind of apocalyptic, kind of like a lot of grays. And then she is in prison in this immaculate Spider-Girl costume. No holes, no rips in it.
Well, I gotta correct you. There's some strategic tears and rips in her costume, just like in Civil War.
It's a little too sexy for this world and this art style that Steve McNiven had. I hate this final page. I just think it's like, what is this? Like,
it's not good.
It's not like a functional outfit.
There's another scene later where the Hulk gang is hanging out with a bunch of playmates dressed as bunnies. And I was like, come on, really?
And he had sex with them so much they're all unconscious.
Again, that's the stuff. Those are the details that I really can't accept. I have to groan past.
So that's issue 2, and then issue 3 is them breaking Spider-Girl, this new Spider-Girl, Ashley, Clint Barton's daughter.
Well, also in the second issue, Wolverine, we learn that he really is a pacifist. Hawkeye's just like, I thought you just lied to your wife. That's what I would do. And he's like, no, bub, I will never harm another living soul. And there in the comic, one of the villains is like, what a stupid philosophy you have, dum-dum.
Well, and I hate how he always says specifically, I haven't popped my claws in 50 years. Like, he never innovates on the word popped my claws. He always says, popped my claws. The narration says, popped his claws. And I'm like, you could use other words, guys. Look up a thesaurus. Like, I haven't been the Wolverine. I haven't used my claws. I haven't popped my claws. I haven't popped my claws.
Do you think like one day him and his son are like out in the woodshed or whatever? He's like, son, go get me that handsaw. He's like, well, why don't you just use your claws? No. I haven't popped my claws in 47 years.
But also his son wouldn't say, why don't you use your claws? His son would also say, why haven't you popped your claws? Why don't you pop your claws? Like, it's just it's like shitty writing. Like, use a different turn of phrase.
Right. Sorry. I want to mention one of the things I liked about the second issue, because this is all going to fall on me now. I really did like the Hammer's Fall city where Thor's hammer had fallen and sort of this cult had built up around it. Like, that felt like one of those fun, realistic touches. Like, oh, the superheroes will be back. They always come back, right? No one's ever dead permanently. And I've kind of liked that sort of very depressing hope that they had there.
Yeah, I think the imagery of this, like the Baxter building just crumbled, and like the dead giant Loki skeleton. Like, I like all the imagery. I think they go to the well a little too much on these like just dead. There's also a dead giant man somewhere, right? Pym Falls or something.
Yeah.
It's just like Miller and McNiven, y'all do this a lot. But otherwise, it looks cool.
I wanted more of that. If this whole thing had just been like giant spreads of how all the heroes and villains died.
Just giant corpses, right? That's all you want from these guys.
Really, that's all I want from McNiven. Giant corpses and Logan remembering these fights.
It works in Force Awakens to have that like just like completely destroyed Star Destroyer that like Rey goes through. I'm fine with it. I am fine with it. It just feels like they go to the well a lot.
How come Bill Foster Black Goliath doesn't have his own tourist trap that people go see? He's everyone's favorite.
one, he was buried, and two, this is a separate like Earth 28201 or something. So it's not technical.
I don't know what number it is.
It's not. It's not 616 though. It's not your universe.
Yeah, Vince, it's so weird to me that you say 616. I've always heard 616 because 616, like, it makes it sound like it's 6 next to each other. I don't know. 616
that's
is how
fair.
I've always thought of it in my head.
Okay, I'll call it 616 from now on. Because wait, Marvel Universe doesn't have a 616 anymore, does it?
Wait, what?
What?
Aren't they? Isn't it just Universe 1 now?
No, it's still 616. I thought.
Okay.
What's Rey Mysterio's move? Isn't it the 619? I think
that's the 619. Woo! Oh man, I could watch some Lucha Libre right now. Let's go.
So issue 3, they break Ashley out of prison, and actually, I do kind of like this action sequence. I'm on board with her like telling Hawkeye like she's like whatever, how many feet away from my voice. And then, like, he shoots an arrow blind to destroy some secret panel, and she murders the Kingpin in, like, an awesome way. So I'm totally down with it.
And then she doesn't want to be rescued at all. She's like, no, dude, we live in a world of bad guys. It's kill or be killed. I'm taking over now. And that's when Wolverine... This is what causes Wolverine to break out of his pacifism? I don't know. I feel like he's so disconnected from everything that that wouldn't do it. But anyways, he drives a car through some bad guys and smashes it across a few buildings. Yeah, doesn't make a lot of sense, but it was pretty cool.
It's really just a loophole around his pacifism. Like he's still like, well, I'm not doing it, bub. This is the car.
I don't have to. I don't have to. I can't kill you, but I don't have to save you.
I don't think we mentioned a scene where Daredevil and Punisher have been captured and are made to fight dinosaurs for whatever reason.
But they're like lame new guys who are like, I'm the Daredevil and the Punisher.
Yeah,
it's a lot like Idiocracy. Idiocracy has a similar sequence where characters are tied up and then killed by.
Yeah. Good stuff. Idiocracy. Nowhere relevant to our current predicaments. Number 6, next 69. That's issue 4. Issue 69, right? Part 4.
They escape and then they fall down a pit and they run from the Moloids, and that's about it. That's my notes.
Yeah, I didn't like this issue. This was the first issue I didn't like at all because they fell down into like a deep cavern and had to escape from the Moloids. But I'm like, okay, you're in the future. Don't go under the caves where you can write anything under the caves whenever you want because it's, not currently in the light. If you're going to have fun with a creative new world, don't go to the part that we don't need to see, right?
Right.
And
that's what I'm thinking.
It's also just really sloppy writing because Wolverine, they're in a car crash. He is unconscious hours longer than Hawkeye. Like, what the hell? Like, how is that even possible?
His healing factor doesn't work as well as it used to.
Yeah, but Hawkeye's never had one.
Yeah, and he's old.
Yeah, Hawkeye's real old. He's a spry 80-year-old. He's a spry 80-year-old.
I guess so, man. I don't know.
I mean, this is like a place where this is the issue that had the Baxter building that fell over the giant Loki. Like, why don't you just walk through that and find the Moloids rather than a cave?
Yeah, find some
just like a derelict Baxter building. Like that works like a sideways Baxter building. That's a much better visual.
Yeah, where Reed's weird experiments have all gone awry, and so it's a crazy zone where people don't go because it's just so unexplainable and dangerous.
Yeah.
Damn, that would have been cool. Oh shit.
Yeah, but this would have taken like 3 more months to make then.
Yeah, McNiven couldn't have drawn all that. You're right.
Just draw a nihilist wandering by.
All right, Jeff Lemire, you should do that.
Yeah, Jeff Lemire, free story. You can have it. I just want to read it. So in the next issue, we finally get like the story of what happened to Logan. He's been remembering it with like these little flashbacks, these kind of moments where he's what do you call that? Where you're traumatized by war.
PTSD'd?
Thank you. He's getting some PTSD. And we finally get the explanation. And the reason is because it's like the day that the supervillains all teamed up to beat them. And he was like slaughtering them like crazy, like going through all the supervillains. And it turns out it was a trick from Mysterio. And he was actually killing his entire...
he murdered all the X-Men. I'm actually very happy that it was a Mysterio reveal. Like, I like that part of it. I'm like, okay,
Sure, I do too.
they've done that with Wolverine before in other comics before. But what I don't like about it is how like meta and like comic winky it is. Like the villains at the beginning are like, we realized that we each have like 8 of us to every one hero, so we decided we'd team up and then we'd be able. And like this is like a Clerk's argument, not like Hydro Man and Green Goblin don't think like we should team up. Like they don't do that. They don't work together. They don't collaborate. And I look at those villains.
And every time they try, because they have tried before. Every time they do, the fact that they're such shits to each other, like they immediately backstab one another.
Yeah.
And characters like Magneto find out that Red Skull is a Nazi, and they're like, "Fuck you."
Right. Yeah. Oh, so in this world, Magneto and Red Skull work together. Spoiler alert. But
Yeah. In this world, it's apparently no problem.
I guess they got over their differences, The
Holocaust.
My big problem with it is, haven't Mysterio's powers always been like fairly artificial? Like he hasn't had mind control powers, and there was a line that Wolverine had where he was like,
smell them or something.
It looked like them. I could smell them, and like all this, like it just looked exactly like them, and it felt like them, and all that. And I'm like, how did Mysterio get this kind of power, unless it was like in combination with all these other villains that were working with him, in which case, at least show them as well, give them a little bit of the spotlight.
Yeah, and that's what was confusing to me, but also what was confusing to me is why Wolverine immediately escalated to killing everyone, because in no prior Wolverine story does he just like, when outnumbered by villains, just kill them all, like no questions asked. Like maybe in X-Men 2, the movie, he does. He's like, I'm not messing around. I'm going to kill everybody right now. But in the comics, he's like, Omega Red's there. His first step is like, let's just stab him and stab him and stab him. Like that's not his first go-to. Does that make sense? And so And so I'm like, why did he do that this time? Like the kids weren't in peril. Like there wasn't anything that like made Wolverine go to like berserker mode like right now.
Yeah, I talked about last issue having a plot hole. This issue's plot hole is enormous. It makes no sense at all. And what also makes no sense is he's like, Bullseye and me had like an epic showdown that went on for 30 minutes, and then it turned out it was Jubilee. It's like, wait, what? Like, back up a second.
So in the fiction of this world, Jubilee held her own against Wolverine for 30 minutes, getting pieces of her cut off.
Like, that makes no sense, dude.
Oh, it was her jacket getting cut off. That's what it was. It's too big and flowy, right?
It's so stupid. And y'all saw this coming, right?
I didn't, because
I
already
knew. Yeah, I already knew it happened before I read it. But yeah, you're right. We knew the villains were going to take over, so you kind of would have seen. But
like, I read Enemy of the State, which was also by Mark Millar. I was like, I saw this coming miles away. I thought he would have killed like Captain America and more people. That it would have been like he was basically mind controlled by the villains and working for them. But it's like, no, he was just tricked into killing the X-Men and then he quit.
Yeah,
I guess I should have seen that coming. In Jason Aaron's run, he did murder all of his children, not knowing that they were his children.
What?
Wolverine, and I love Jason Aaron, but in that one, Wolverine has apparently gotten around for like the last 30 years and has a lot of kids, and he just murdered them all, not knowing they were his kids.
They were bad, weren't they?
Yeah, they were bad guys. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Wolverine can be tricked into killing a lot of people, like when the story's convenient.
Yep. I think what happened in the next issue? Because I think my only note there.
The end of this issue was Venom T-Rex.
Oh, that's when that issue. Okay, and so the next one is them escaping it.
Yeah, then they get like teleported away.
They get teleported away and go chill with Emma Frost, who does not look a day over 40.
Well, that's because she's using her psychic powers to trick everyone.
Okay.
And to see what she wants them to see. That made sense to me.
And so this issue, this is where they bring the super serum, because that's apparently what Hawkeye's.
Yeah, that was the whole point of the Hawkeye thing. Right. Was
to bring Hawkeye had not told him what Wolverine was doing, and I think he said he'd do it for like $500 or something, like a real low amount.
That seems.
But he was delivering the super soldier serum to some SHIELD agents so that then they could mount a resistance against the evil president. But turns out the people they're delivering to are actually the bad guys, and they shoot Hawkeye in the head.
Mm-hmm. They are the Shield agents, but Shield is bad because they work for the bad guys, I guess.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. They're bad guys.
It's not important.
Yeah. Well, and we also saw that Red Skull is somehow still the president and has been for like 40 years or something like that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Red Skull doesn't age. I'm okay with that.
Yes, he doesn't age. Since when?
He seems pretty spry in the 2000s. Was he frozen, or did he just jump into other bodies?
Yeah, his body was destroyed. He jumped into a clone Cap body.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say Cosmic Cube. That thing tends to solve all the problems, Cosmic Cube.
Of all the plot holes in this book, that's the least of my worries.
Yeah. They got a magic cube that'll take care of it.
I like how the Logan movie is only taking place like in 2029, not 50 years, but only 12 years later.
Yeah, that's my other problem with it. Like 50 years is a little far. Like bring it a little closer, Everything feels
if everybody's already dead,
way too old.
Yeah. If everybody's dead already, you can make them 20. You can make it 20 years past. It's fine.
You can make it one generation and it would be fine.
Yeah.
Also, stop voting for Red Skull, everybody.
I don't think they get votes. I really like the Red Skull's kind of collection, his trophy room.
I like that he wears his Captain America outfit the whole time.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Oh god, I love it. It's so fucking weird. I love that detail.
Also, didn't it seem like it was Bucky Cap was the guy he killed?
Oh, it might have been.
Oh, spoiler! Maybe Captain America's not dead. He's coming back.
Steve Rogers was dead at this time in Marvel continuity. I think so. He didn't come back till 2009, maybe even later.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think he was back by the time this issue came out, but
that might be accurate. I think
when this issue was plotted a year earlier, he was still dead. I think
because he died like in February 2007. I want to say
2007. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Oh well.
I like it though. I like that he kills the Red Skull. Although it seems like I don't know if it's an homage or a traced over panel from Civil War. Specifically, I think a Civil War cover of Iron Man punching Cap, but instead it's Wolverine punching Cap Red Skull. And then he decapitates him with the Captain America shield. I'm on board. This was actually the first issue I was like, I really like this. I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah,
it's
kind of worth it, right?
I didn't like it in the sense that it was the story has moved in scope way too much at this point because he's supposed to be the president of America.
Right.
It's like if this was just if Red Skull was I don't know, the governor of the state or something, that's a perfectly fine action movie move. But then he's the president and he kills him and it's now tune in for the conclusion. It's wait a minute.
It didn't bother me as much just hearing that there still is a president, that was kind of weird because we're seeing this wasteland where it's who the fuck even lives here anymore,
Right. And it seems like they have their separate fiefdoms, Kingpin. Yeah. Kingpin's Nevada region does not really report to Washington.
Right. I guess maybe he's just president of his little region. I don't know.
And then Wolverine tragically gets home after killing the Red Skull.
Oh, in his Iron Man suit that he steals from Red Skull. Which,
that was pretty funny. I like that.
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman is in front of the saloon, but he's dead.
What? Was that Morgan Freeman?
It's the end of Unforgiven.
Oh, I see.
And he's I'll pop my claws again, bub.
Yeah, he gets home and they're Hulk gang killed your family. Oh boy. And it's what the hell was the point of all that shit we just read? Okay, whatever. I guess the next issue is going to be him killing everybody. And it is. Because the next issue is our super special thing, which is only super special because they couldn't wait for him to finish the story.
Daniel Way's got to crank out that story, guys. I do appreciate that Hulk's kids are named Bo and Luke, which listeners may know as the names of the Dukes of Hazzard boys, them Duke boys.
Yeah.
I like that.
Duke boys.
He murders them pretty quickly, and then he fights Bruce Banner Hulk, and Bruce Banner Hulk eats Wolverine. Bruce Banner Hulk doesn't know that that's the dumbest idea in the world.
I know, right? Like you see that and you're just like, oh, so he's gonna bust out of him. And don't get me wrong, it was very entertaining to watch Wolverine just regenerate himself out of the Hulk. Like that was pretty cool. But we also didn't like it felt like it went through so much to make that happen. And like Bruce Banner, what the hell is going on with you? Like he's not even human anymore. Ugh,
Again, it would have been fine if it had just been some rando Hulk.
Right, it doesn't need to be, yeah.
Yeah, and
What was the
they're
point
more
of
more like
here?
Fallout super mutants than the Hulk because they are easily murdered.
Yeah.
And you know, I can appreciate that moment and the fun of it, everything that it takes to get there. I'm like, oh boy, but those single giant panels, that's what I love this book for. Just flip through it, and anytime there's a big panel, just stop it and look at it and go, yeah, and then keep going. That's all you need. You don't need to read the words. I think
that's probably good advice.
Yeah, don't read the words.
Yeah, put that on the re-release. They'll sell at Barnes and Noble.
Oh yeah, a review from some of our friends read comics. Don't read the words. I hope that appears on the back on the dust jacket.
Pretty good if you don't read the words. Some of my friends read.
But I kid. There were moments that I was like, all right, this is fine, it's fun. But yeah, overall, it's what you get with. Did we ever decide if it's Millar or Mark Miller?
I think it's actually pronounced Miller, but it looks like Millar.
Oh no. I started saying Millar because I think you were, and then you stopped, and now I sound like an idiot. Man,
I don't know. I also say 616, so you know. Go
what a dumbass! All right.
Hey kids, do you like a book where Marv from Sin City doesn't do anything? You might like Old Man Logan.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I like that sort of alternate future aspect of everything. It reminded me a lot of Earth X, which I really enjoyed. But again, Earth X was set kind of closer in the future, and everything, while it was sad because a lot of the same heroes weren't around, it was a lot more creative in the sense that we got these kind of weird other, I don't know, just other things that were out there. I don't even remember who wrote that series, but
it's not Alex. Is it Alex Ross that wrote it?
Alex Ross did all the covers.
He did the covers.
Which is a really nice, big, sort of connected cover. Yeah,
I don't know. This book though is just like, I think it's a great premise, and he just chose like the wrong story to tell in the premise.
Yeah,
like I mean, like I think that the movie seems to be doing like a lot smarter things with just like, it's about an old man, you know, like Unforgiven, you know, who's seen his like killing, murdering days past him. He wants to be a pacifist, just live out his life. He feels bad about his sins, just wants to live out. And an old man from his past, in this case, Professor X, comes in to say, like, we need to go do some action here. But Professor X isn't leading the action the way Hawkeye is, which lets, you know, Logan do the action. And so it seems like a smarter approach to the story, just from what I've seen in the trailers. Like, if you did a do-over, it seems like Hawkeye being too proactive is problematic for this story.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing, like, why Hawkeye? There's so many people in the X-Men universe, so much, like, and you said it in the future, so you could make anyone anything, and you just picked Hawkeye and made him just generic asshole. Like, there's so much more opportunity there, you know?
Right. So, you know,
yeah, it doesn't really make any sense.
Yep.
Yeah. Do Wolverine and Hawkeye have like a past?
Not until New Avengers, right?
I don't think so. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like who Wolverine would have that would, like, you know. I mean, probably if you could just even did like the kid of somebody, like bringing him to action, like that'd be enough.
Yeah, like I don't know. So many different ways you could have done it.
I guess the young Avengers would be old now, but you know, like Cassie Lang's kid or something. I don't know.
Right, anything, or Cassie Lang, just an older Cassie Lang, you know.
35-year-old Cassie Lang.
Oh, it's might as well be 60-year-old Cassie Lang. Am I right? Hollywood these days.
You two should write comics. Wow. So I think that's about it. There's not anything else to read of this, so it's hard to say would you read more for this? But I really would recommend, don't read the Brian Michael Bendis Old Man Logan. It's a waste of time. But for me, Jeff Lemire's new Old Man Logan series, I think the first arc is actually pretty interesting and pretty good. It's him kind of scared that future he saw is gonna play out again, and so now he's kind of trying to go back and kill all those villains just in case.
Okay, so it
Which,
takes place in the current day, but it's this character.
right. They kind of
Okay.
so like there was this big event a couple of years ago where all of Marvel's alternate universes were kind of smashed together into one big world. And when everything was made right again, there were basically just a few characters here and there. Like they have Miles Morales, the new Spider-Man from the Ultimate Universe. He's now running around in our universe along with regular Spider-Man. You've got Old Man Logan who's in there.
Spider-Gwen, is Spider-Gwen around?
Spider-Gwen still has her own universe, but she hops over to ours every now and then.
Okay.
Yeah, I keep saying ours. God, it's my world,
Marvel,
man. It's
your
the world I
universe.
visit.
It's yours and
universe.
mine.
Yep. So yeah, give Jeff Lemire's a try. If you don't like the first arc, though, I don't think you'll like the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah, my opinions about this is it is nihilistic. Just like brutal violence is supposed to be the payoff to boring garbage.
Yep.
And if you don't like that, it sucks.
Yep. Brutal violence. If you like brutal violence, though, this is the book for you.
But that's supposed to be your cake. That's your reward for like, hey, we know this book has sucked so far, but get ready. He's going to kill Red Skull and it's going to be kind of cool. It's like, I guess, but like, why and who?
That's what, hey, it's better if you don't read the words.
It's just such a mess. I'm so like Millard. I mean, there's no character work. I mean, and again, that's what just from this movie preview, you're like, oh, like Logan has like this, he has like a father type relationship, and that's going to be difficult for him, I predict. And it's they've been mining this for 30. I mean, Frank Miller and Chris Claremont were like, oh, he could be like a father figure, and you could get conflict out of this character
Lone wolf
that
and cub.
is inherently kind of boring.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what like every single like X-Men introduction is him like with Jubilee in the comics, or is it Rogue that he pretty much adopts in the first movie? Like
In the movie, yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those classic. We've talked about it before. How a lot of the strong, silent characters always need that like extra person along with them to ask questions and help move the story along. And it doesn't work as well when it's an older man who's just trying to get him back into action.
I think the premise is fine. I just think the story around it is just like I wouldn't do Hawkeye. I wouldn't do the road trip. I wouldn't do but I can also understand they sold me on the concept, and I think that's why I was like excited for it, and I think that's why it's considered a classic, because it is a great concept and a great starter idea. Just the execution is very flawed.
Yeah,
and it's too slow.
Yeah.
It's too slow.
Way too slow.
Way too slow. All right. Well, I think we've gone around in circles around it enough. Sorry. All right. Last thing,
I
Chris.
will say though, just because I don't want to just be negative and then not recommend something better. If y'all want to read good bleak alternate history Marvel comics, read the Age of Apocalypse. Not any of the stuff that Marvel has made in like the past 15 or 20 years, trying to go back to the Age of Apocalypse. Read the original Age of Apocalypse. It's pretty cool stuff. There's maps. Apocalypse has a like throne of skulls in New York that he runs things from. It is super grimdark, but in a way that you actually sort of buy it, because the whole premise is that Magneto has to be Professor X, and he's terrible at it.
That's kind of funny. All right.
It's a good premise.
I've wanted to read that book for a long time. Well, it's hard to read, but I do want to read it.
You kind of have to read all. Yeah, it's hard to decide where you want to start, but there's a lot out there. It's not too bad.
For Age of Apocalypse, do you have to know what like people's status quos were to know how this like inverts it?
It helps, but I don't think you have to know that. And some of it's so basic. Like, like Cyclops being, working for Mr. Sinister is not something where, like, you need to know all their history. It's just kind of like, oh, Cyclops is bad in this world.
Okay, yeah, and Magneto is trying to be Professor X, and you know what Professor X is, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not, like, there's an extra sort of layer of, like, oh, I get, like, this sort of ties in. Well, I see where this could have happened kind of thing. Or, like, Kitty Pryde and Colossus are a married couple in the Age of Apocalypse, and you're like, oh, that actually makes more sense than the craziness that they separated the two and a bunch of stuff happened. But yeah, I like that as a dystopian story. If you want more Hulk in your dystopian stories, I'd recommend the Hulk Future Imperfect.
Ooh.
Oh, I never read that.
Which I don't know if it holds up, but it's got good art at least.
Hulk the End was all right too.
Did I read that one? I may have read
Peter
that.
David book, I believe.
Yeah, I like Peter David. We've never done any Peter David for the show. Maybe soon. That's right. We're going on a little too long.
To invert books where not a lot happens, we're going to do a very dense book right now.
Yes.
70s comics.
Iron Fist is coming out soon on Netflix. When's that coming out?
2 weeks. I think on St. Patrick's Day.
Okay. And so, I mean, this is kind of the one I'm least excited about so far. I think that's sort of like, woo, Netflix series, cool. Like, that kind of buzz is wearing off a little bit. But, hey, it's a new one. I'll probably still watch it anyways.
I'm excited for Defenders.
And, yeah, I'm very excited for, like, it leading to Defenders eventually. And so we're going to go back and read some classic Iron Fist from about the same era that we did our Luke Cage comics back when that show was coming out. But this is by... Chris Claremont and John Byrne, again, same creative team, and they. This is a story that it started in Marvel Premiere number 25, and then bled over to the premiere of Iron Fist's own series in 1975. So we're going to read the first 6 issues or so of that, whenever the first story ends. So yeah, Marvel Premiere 25.
It might end with issue 7, so we'll reserve the right. I was previewing it today.
Okay,
but it's
cool.
8 70s comics, so.
Oof, yeah, those are pretty dense. So we'll do what we can.
There might be a lot of summing up.
Yeah.
But I do remember Ed Brubaker called it the best first year of a comic ever. Is the first 12 issues of Iron Fist, and Brubaker and Fraction ended up doing a pretty good run on Immortal Iron Fist in the mid 2000s. So they love Iron Fist. He's a kung fu billionaire. So
yeah,
they're on board with that.
Right. Kung Fu Billionaire. Join us next week for Kung Fu Billionaire from 1975. It's very exciting. And yeah, I think that's it. So thank you so much for joining us and listening. For Vince and Chris and myself, Kia, we love you so much. Thank you.
Snicked.
Good night.
Did you just pop your claws, Vince?
Yep. I haven't popped my claws in 50 episodes. This is episode 49, by the way. So
that's close enough. It's good rounding.
I should have waited till, but I just couldn't help myself. 49 episodes, I popped my claws.
Yeah, you had to.
Damn it.